My mum was hit by a car. Killed, very, very bad injury. She went underneath it, so fatal injuries. Declared dead in about an hour and 40. And obviously that turned my family completely inside out. My father was very dependent on my mum. He actually died 13 months later, just through pure stress. But I deployed 6 weeks, I believe. Again, my memory's fuzzy, but it was pretty close afterwards. I went and deployed. And I got stuck in. The operational tempo was very, very high. On that particular tour, there was like 180, in excess of 180 operations that we were involved in. And essentially, I proved that I was valid. I got commendated in certain ways, and I was doing my work well enough. I finished that tour and came back. But I came back with alopecia, and had I known what I know now, I would have attributed that much more closely to, okay, well, it's interesting. Human beings can go on a long time. But that, my mum's death would be described as allostatic load. Right. And it is stresses from your professional environment, but also your personal environment added up, and how that compounds on an individual. And alopecia was definitely linked to that. At the time I was, I just put it down to diet. I even remember it kind of getting noticed, because I was sort of too tired to even notice. I didn't, to be honest with you, I haven't really ever paid too much attention to what I looked like. But I was having my hair cut, and I remember the hairdresser saying to me, "Oh, you poor boy," which is like, one, I found it really interesting. She called me a boy, but I think remembering back, I was about 25, so that's probably a fair one. Yeah, exactly. And then obviously I'd started developing these perfect circles in my beard, which are still there now, and they come and go. And that just dates back to that period where obviously like long-term stress had just kicked in. Wow. And I was performing at a very, very high level, constantly turning over, out, back in, right. Making decisions all the time. At my age, it was almost a privilege to be able to do that. Everyone wants to work in a role in an environment in their industry where they're challenged and tested. And you can be proved that you were good, you were effective, and right. And especially at that age, that was important for me. But I returned, and my body was trying to tell me something. But I continued.
That had to have been brutal, man. Losing both your parents within
it's very tough, right? So very, very tough.
And you said your dad passed away from just stress?
Yeah, well, the medical term is a broken heart, and right. What that is I don't know what killed him, but he described how he would die, right? And he used to get up very early in the morning. He used to have a cup of tea with my mum, and that was his sort of darkest period of his time after my mum had died. So, and I remember going back and speaking to him, because I was obviously working on some sort of medical attachments that we do in order to practice our medical skills. Drove home very early in the morning and found him in the kitchen. I was chatting to him, and I just remember sort of looking at him and just going, you're hardly holding it together, right? I looked in the fridge, and there was just some fish lined up and some tomatoes. But he was, he's really struggling to live even domestically. Right. He was keeping him good. I mean, my dad was a pretty talented man, right? He's a competition sailor that he built his own boats.
No way, really?
Yeah, so he's built his own boats. He's a really incredible person. But he just simply wasn't managing. And he said, when I get up, that's that toughest time, and it's almost like there's a pain. And of course, what he's describing, and what I would assess is there's something called Takotsuba cardiomyopathy, and when you're deep levels of stress, immediate grief after bereavement, and other forms. So financial stress can do this to you. Separation of a loved one can do this to you. And he had a massive heart attack, and he fell over quite violently. He was obviously really, really big. Now, what Takotsuba is for some reason, and medical science doesn't know why, but it was found in a post-mortem in the 80s in Japan, therefore Takotsuba. So Takotsuba means octopus trap. And for some reason, the long stress, particularly pronounced through to grief or whatever, stuns muscles in the heart. Oh, wow. In one chamber alone. I think the right or left atrium, whatever it is, it makes the heart look like an octopus trap, which is why they called it Takotsuba. And what that does is, in most people, it wouldn't be a problem at all. That would be you would return to normal. And unless you have other really quite severe heart preconditions, it usually
Right.
wouldn't really sort of affect you. But clearly in his case, and if it was that, nothing was found in his post-mortem, and toxicology and everything else.
Wow. Yeah. First discovered in Japan in 1990.
And just because, and the heart goes back to normal either naturally or obviously after event of death, it will do that the same, because you haven't got that effect back on the heart. So,
Right.
we don't know how many people are, have been fallen victim to that.
So you can't diagnose it post-mortem.
Yeah, but what I do know is, they've identified the mechanism of it. So if you're bereaved and you've got central pains, you shouldn't be too surprised. Don't be overly concerned. This thing just goes back to normal in the vast, vast majority of cases. But for some reason that we cannot put down, or at least I've never read an explanation for it, is this stunning muscle on the left side. I'm sure it's left side, maybe left or right, but one side of the heart that compromises the heart's function a bit, and it interferes with its myocardium, so its rhythm. So that's a period of risk, and I do some sort of closed speaking stuff, very rarely, but when I do it I really enjoy it. It's lovely closing the doors and speaking to people, and meeting people, and you have to prepare for it, which is brilliant. It's an all part of research and everything like that. It's all very important. So sorry, the point being is that the title of that is a unique perspective for the challenges we all share. What I say to people is human stress is inevitable. Pressure's a natural cause and actually very good for you, but human stress is inevitable. When you're listening to this talk about sort of special forces and military, this all sounds very exceptional, but there's not one person in this room that will not be bereaved at one time in your life. It's highly likely you'll know someone close to you that's going to suffer a pretty challenging illness to treat. There's highly likely you'll end up separating from someone that's be a pretty brutal experience whilst it goes on. And don't be surprised that this is hard. It's your approach to it that is absolutely critical in how you emerge from it. The emergence from it is not going to be quick. We're talking weeks. People think they've moved on from a death in 6 weeks, 10 weeks, 12 weeks, 3 months. No, it's not anywhere near. It's like that will be affecting you for the next couple of years at least. If not, it will have a legacy behind it. But physiologically you'll return to normal, and everything. But that won't be quick.
Was your dad and your mom together for how long were they together?
Yeah, very decades and decades.
Decades.
30 to 40 years, I think.
Wow.
Yeah. So they were really amazing people. But then I think most people regard their parents as that. My mum was extremely hard working. She ran 3 jobs and a mum to me and my brother. So she was an architect and did something called milk recording as well. So milk recording is, when they manually milk the cows and they had to record how many hands. So me and my brother, when we were young, used to get put on a mattress and driven to a farm. I wake up on the farms very early in the morning.
Whoa.
It's a very cool way of growing up. And I remember taking the big silver urns of milk back. And all that. So my mum was tremendously hard working. She's the sort of person that got up at 4 a.m, did some architecture before the day started. And what happened to her is completely unpredictable as a shock. My dad used to say, I got to shout goodbye to your mum, but never got to do anything else. And that was tremendously hard for him.
Right.
And he was physically very, very fit. They didn't pick up too much in the post-mortem. They picked up some normal stuff that you'd expect. That's the key point.
Right.
I was still going on operations. I didn't stop. But looking back, my body bit back.